The Secrets of Stargate is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
You're listening to The Secrets of Stargate, episode 72.
Janet West, Jackson has identified the seventh symbol.
All right, here we go. We are about to try to make a connection.
All we gotta do is bust out of here, commandeer the ship, and fly on home.
Indeed. You say that a lot.
I know that this could be dangerous. But this is our job, right? It's what we signed on to do.
It was never about going home. It's about getting us to where we're going.
Hello and welcome to The Secrets of Stargate, where we talk about hidden meanings and deeper layers found in the Stargate's movies and series, including SG-1, Atlantis universe, and more. I'm Father Cory Sticha. With me today are Lisa Jones and Victor Lambs. Howdy, Lisa.
Hey, Father Cory.
And howdy, Victor.
Ka, Father Cory.
Before we begin, I'd like to invite you to join our Discord server. We're having a lot of fun, and you can join in with discussing all our shows. Get your invite at sqpn.com/discord. All are invited to join, even if you're not a Patreon patron. Also, you can go to sqpn.com/merch to get your t-shirts, mugs, stickers, and much more, including Secrets of Stargate and our other shows. Today, we're discussing the first ones, the 8th episode from the 4th season of Stargate SG-1. Daniel Jackson is with SG-11 and Robert Rothman on P3X 888, a planet thought to be the origin of the Goua'uld, doing some archaeology. A young Unas, the first species used as host by the Goua'uld, captures Daniel and drags him off. Dr. Rothman was able to get back through the gate to alert the SGC, so Colonel O'Neill leads SG-1 and SG-2 to look for Daniel. Meanwhile, despite being dragged all over the planet and almost being infected by the Goua'uld larva still living on the planet, Daniel attempts to better understand and communicate with the young Unas, whom he names Chaka. Nevertheless, Chaka takes Daniel to his clan. As all this is going on, Teal'c realizes that some members of the search team have been infected by Goua'uld larva and is able to trick them into revealing themselves. Dr. Rothman and one member of SG-2 turn all glowy eyes and are killed by the remaining members of the SG teams. Eventually, SG-1 shows up at the Unas clan in time to help Chaka kill the alpha male to protect Daniel, and so that Chaka can become the new head of the clan. So since last time I picked on Lisa, made her go first. Victor, what did you think of this one?
I actually really like this episode. We get to see a lot of the different SG teams, how they operate. There's some cool archaeology happening in the first segment where they dig up a skeleton of a Goua'uld queen. There's some intrigue with the origins of the Goua'uld. They don't have Naquadah in their blood at this point. Maybe they're not symbiotic or parasitic at this point. Maybe they're just a normal species. And then we meet a Unas who has a lot more depth than the previous two Unases that we've seen. Really good performances all around. I really like this one. A lot happens in it. I think your summary was very good at making it kind of easily digestible because there is a lot going on here. But this is, again, probably like one of my top 20 episodes, maybe top 15. I like it.
Very good. How about you, Lisa?
No, I hate this episode. Sorry, Victor. I really was hoping that when I watched it back this time, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I was so wrong 22 years ago. No, I still hate it. Yeah, no, I feel like it was written into Michael Schink's contract, like episode just from, Daniel. And so here it is. No, I just, the whole Unas, Daniel Jackson, Chaka thing, I just want to fast forward. No. I can't really explain it. It does not do anything for me. I'm like, wake me up when Carter gets to blow up the sun.
Yeah. Is that coming up soon? Oh,
I think it's next one.
Is it? Okay. Yeah, I think I'm a little more with Victor on this one. I liked it, mainly because it again advances the mythology of the Goua'uld quite a bit. Find out more about him. Of course, I love Teal'c shooting his staff and killing the larva right out of the air, just not even looking. No look blast, But no, it other than Daniel, who's Daniel. I kind of like this one as well. But we do learn a little bit more about the Unas. We do learn more about the Goua'uld, where they come from. And of course, my first thought was, okay, you're on the planet the Goua'uld are from. Is there a chance that maybe there's still some of them left on this planet?
Yeah, I mean, considering that their camp, their dig site is 3 hours by foot from the Stargate, they've established that, so they've seen a lot of territory here. But it really is one or two maybe pools where the Goua'uld live. Part of what makes this up, I mean, this episode would not work if Dion Johnstone, who we see repeatedly across the series as various aliens and stuff, if he was not so good and able to convey so much emotion beneath that, the prosthetics and the mask, this episode would fall flat on its face. It's written and directed by Peter DeLuise. I'm not sure this may be the first one that he's written, but I just sense a lot of Peter DeLuise behind the camera telling the actors, how to react. There's humor, there's pathos, there's, wonder on the face of Chaka at some point when he first realizes that Daniel can communicate. And if you just watch Dion Johnstone's face, underneath all that makeup and that prosthetics and stuff, it's really a really good performance.
Yeah, I'll agree. He does a fabulous job. And the makeup is, I mean, Stargate's come a long way from season 1.
Yeah.
And some of the makeups and the way they made their aliens look. So I will give kudos on that, because that really made it, that was not why I didn't like it.
Yeah, I mean,
they did a good job.
When we last saw the Unas and Demons, it looked like a kaiju, like a Toho Godzilla movie production. And now we see Chaka, which I think has to be a reference to Shaka in the Darmok episode of Next Generation, where they can't communicate, and Daniel never figures out what Chaka means in this episode. It tends to be like an invitation or an invocation of some sort. It's not the creature's name, but we'll refer to him as Chaka. But it's not only do we get to see the costume in full daylight, but we also get to see it in rain. Like, it's raining in one of the scenes too, and I'm like, wow, they actually put their makeup and prosthetics out in the elements, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that part of it. Though it was kind of disappointing it wasn't James Earl Jones voicing the Unas again, but oh well, you know, you only get that once, and we got that right off the start. So, and by the way, I looked up, this is Peter DeLuise's first writing credit for SG-1. Okay. So from here on, he actually writes quite a few episodes per season, but this was his first. So yeah, I agree with that. I mean, and the fact that he played multiple Unases, that when they got to the cave where their clan was, he played all of them.
Oh, did he really?
I believe so.
And just in front of a green screen, popping out more and more.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell the ones that were in the back that those were green screened in. I mean, those look pretty bad. But no, I'm sorry. There was one other person, Vincent Hammond, who played
the chieftain or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But I think all the other little ones that he played as well. So it's he could do different parts and just kind of feed them in. So it was that part was good, but I still, Daniel was just kind of like, you get a little irritating there where he's playing with his recorder, talking about all this stuff. It's like, really?
I did like when he had the radio and he's like, oh, this is a radio. It's so I can talk to my friends and they can shoot you, Yeah. And then instead of like doing like the sensible thing, which would have been just like hold down the talk button and then just kind of like put it in your pocket or something so they can triangulate your position or something. He tries to alert them. But there's a lot going on. And, I think we come back to the planet of the Unas at some point, or a different Unas planet, learn a little bit more about their culture and stuff. But, it is cool because we have this completely alien civilization. They don't speak English like everyone else in the galaxy does, apparently. Yeah. And not only that, but they evolved on the planet where the Goua'uld evolved. So there's this whole thing going on. It's like, why are they not all hosts? Why are some of them independent? Why do they like hate and hunt and eat Goua'uld heads? And play catch with toss the parasite head or symbiote head. One of my favorite moments in this episode here.
That was kind of fun to watch. Where they start throwing it at each other, and then he gets offended when Daniel threw it in the fire. Like, no, don't do that. That was your
Yeah.
supper.
I mean,
Yeah.
every parent has played non-ka, right, with their kids at some
Yeah.
point.
Yeah,
Eat
exactly.
it. Non is the unas word for eat, and ka is the
Yep.
word for no.
No.
And we get to see it when Daniel brings out his little protein bar and is like, non, and ka. Like, don't say ka until you've tried it.
Yeah. Well, then he even makes a, and this is how I met my father-in-law,
Mhm.
just like
Exactly.
this.
With the exact.
That was a nice little nod to the movie.
Oh yeah, yeah. Of course, it was chocolate bar there instead of I can't remember what kind of chocolate bar it was, but of course it was a sponsored
Mhm.
thing for the movie. But this wasn't. They didn't have a sponsorship of a chocolate bar, so they had to use some little nondescript
Yeah.
food food substitute.
Yeah. Like dates and walnuts mixed together or something.
Yeah, actually, it didn't look too bad, but who knows what it was. And of course, in this, we also get to see the return and death of Dr. Rothman.
Aw.
Haven't seen
Yeah.
him in a while.
Yeah, they did not do right by that character. Granted, okay, Jack didn't like Dr. Rothman, so maybe for him as a character it was satisfying when he got like shot at the end, but Jack just got shot him a whole bunch of times. But when he died, my kids who were watching it, they're age like 7 and 9, they're like, oh, I like that guy. Like, why did yeah.
Daniel didn't even like that guy. In the beginning, and they're arguing about digging up the fossil, and I mean, Daniel's just like rolling his eyes, and
Well, I did like how sarcastic though he could be. Like, Jack would ask him a question and he'd go, "Oh no, are you sure?" "No, of course I don't know. What are you asking me for?"
Well, and he does explain that he's because he's an archaeologist. He says he could give me like a 10,000-year-old skeleton. I could tell you what they have for breakfast, but people who are living today are just too recent, which is a really good line. You're just too recent for me to understand you. And and I did like how at the beginning he makes like the colonel of SG-1 like go for water. He's like, no. Do you want water? I'll get more. I love ordering these military guys around and stuff.
Yeah.
So I like Dr. Rothman. When Jack wakes him up out of a sound sleep and asks him about Hawkins and says like, does he seem like different? And Rothman's like, different, weird, odd. It's just like this.
Yeah.
I can understand
I'm
why
still waking up.
Yeah, why Jack doesn't like him. If this episode had been done in like the Atlantis time frame, he would have been a recurring character. He would have been part of like the Atlantis expedition that every 6 episodes you would have checked in with Rothman to see how he's doing. So
you can see him and Rodney sparring.
Yeah.
yeah, it is interesting that he's supposed to be Daniel's backup. We only see him 3 times, and he's already gone.
Yeah.
So I don't think we get another one. So I guess they'd as many times as we got Jonas Quinn, but
Jonas comes kind of
I
fills
mean, as
in.
many times as Daniel gets in trouble, you think they would have had somebody else around.
This is a really good
But it was-
Daniel episode. I mean, this is probably like one of the, if you like Daniel Jackson, this is like probably his premiere episode, I would say.
Because he gets to kind of showcase who he is.
Yeah, and he gets to talk
Actually
a
being
lot.
an archaeologist and cultural expert or whatever.
Well, they do keep him in character. I mean, everything he does is in line with who he is on the show. The curiosity, I read something online. Someone said he was ruder to the doctor in Watergate last week, the scientist, Marina Sirtis character, than he is to Shaka. He's just so curious, and I'm going to figure this out, and let's do it. And that is completely in line with how we've seen him.
Oh yeah, this is a new culture to learn. This is something new to figure out. This is Shaka's a puzzle to figure out. I think he even kind of said something like that.
Not another military person. It doesn't matter if you're U.S. military or Russian military. If you're just a person in a military, capacity, Daniel's not going to relate to you very well. But
he's not terrified for his life either. He's like you said, it's more of a puzzle.
Yeah, exactly. I did get a kick out of the names of the fossils though. They picked was it Brutus and Julius and Cleo.
Yep.
In other words, Julius Caesar.
And that was a really good, like naming them all after like ancient or, classical humans. And that was a really cool kind of prop, the fossilized remains of the, non-parasitical Goua'uld queen. So I thought that was really cool. And then the fact that they would test like the bone fragments for Naquita as well. And they don't really dig into too much about like what that means. And I think that when it was it Colonel Hawkins who was like one of the one of the first people we knew was possessed by the symbiote. And the fact that he's just kind of like flat effect zombie out there, and you're wondering, it's like, well, are the Goa'ulds on this planet separated from the Goa'ulds in the System Lords? They have no genetic memory, maybe, and so when they possess a human or something, they're just kind of, zombified and can go through the motions. But then Rothman has been full capacity, pulling it over on the humans for who knows how long.
Right. Yeah, it was Major Hawkins.
Yep. It was an interesting concept with not having Naquita, the fact that this was the original planet. But correct me if I'm wrong, we don't really ever dive into all of that, do we? I mean, the fact that Sam and Teal'c can't sense a Goua'uld because there's no Naquita. I mean, that could have been, it's kind of like when we were talking about the Zatark detector, and now that the Goua'uld can brainwash you. And here, now you can't detect them. But it doesn't go anywhere.
No, this is yet another thing that comes up of, we got to watch for this. We got to be concerned about this. And we never hear about it again. Like the high tones for a certain race and the invisible, the Ritu scanner and all this stuff that we never hear about again.
Yeah, I just wonder if they were trying to figure out what to do with the Goua'uld this season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we dive a lot into the Goua'uld mythology and Goua'uld capabilities, but we don't see the System Lords here unless they're like, the only time we've seen them now is like in a flashback where we saw Kronos, right? So,
but we hear about them, that they're still out there. They're still affecting the universe and everything. They're just not affecting where the SG teams are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes me wonder if they were after disposing of Apophis again, how many times was it more of a, okay, let's figure out where we got the replicators now, but we've only seen them briefly. So are we, what are we doing with the Goua'uld? Are we trying to find a new bad guy, bad girl?
We're trying to develop them more so that they're, they are more of an interesting enemy, especially with these other threats that they're developing.
Yeah. Cause I'm looking ahead and we don't really see them until episode 13, the curse. So, because Tangent is back to more Apophis stuff. But again, we don't see him.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I do like that we see more of like the Goua'uld in their element, not just parading around as like, wearing the human suits. And what we see of them on this planet is actually pretty terrifying. Like they can jump out of the water and like glide with their little, fin wings.
Yeah.
And that's pretty scary. When Daniel like tries to escape through the water, he's like, I'm going to get away from Chaka. And then all of a sudden it's like, doo-doo.
Yeah, exactly.
And, Chaka grabs it and Daniel has no idea what it's doing. He like breaks it in half, smears the blue blood on Daniel's face. And Daniel's like, okay, am I a warrior now? Or like, am I Braveheart? But no, he's still going to be the sacrifice, the rite of passage thing. Because that's why Chaka has taken Daniel. And even the scene where Chaka takes Daniel and like there's the airman loader who, we don't see before or after this because he's dead now, but he unloads.
Dies,
yeah. I mean, he is quick on the draw and like basically unloads into Chaka with like a full magazine. And, Daniel gets to do his Androliches, in the lion thing and pull the bullet out of his hand. And there's just a lot going on here. And it's really fascinating to watch. And, there's humor, there's horror elements to it. There's that puzzle, like linguistically, what's going on? Why is Daniel being led through this cave with all these cave paintings that show, the Unas fighting the Goua'uld, and then all of a sudden, the Unas carrying, Chaka paints the painting and shows that Daniel is going to be killed or sacrificed, and which sets up like I think one of the funniest moments here where. SG-1 is hot on the heels of Daniel and Teal'c, the expert tracker runs into the cave and says, "This way." Yeah. And they all run over and Daniel has written in charcoal on the wall, "This way," literally with an arrow pointing. And, Jack goes like, "You're good," to Teal'c.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that
was a pretty good one.
Yeah.
Although Daniel does like 5 swipes on the wall, and it's this perfectly written out this.
Yeah, we don't see what he's
way.
writing when he's writing it. It could be like a pictograph. It could be anything. You kind of get the impression it's an arrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's some really funny bits in this as well.
By the way, the actor who played Airman Loader was Todd Scott, who was Michael Shank's stunt double.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
So this is whenever you see Daniel get thrown around or whatever, this is the guy who actually did it.
Oh, that's good. I didn't know that.
So he got
But
airtime.
yeah, he literally
and got
only
killed.
shows up in this. He was part of that team. And of course, it was the airman. It wasn't an officer. It was the enlisted figures.
Major Coburn gets temporarily demoted in this one too. Like Major Coburn, who's Steve Bakkick's character. Jack comes through and calls him a sergeant.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Ouch. But
wow, that's a big demotion.
yeah. But we do get the introduction of, I think, one of the main characters in the show, and that's the P90 as their main kind of like submachine gun firearm, replacing the MP5s that they'd used up to this point. And that becomes like the iconic like Stargate field weapon for several seasons.
Right.
And actually, because of this, they couldn't get enough ammo for it. Because they were using it, like the real people who were buying these guns couldn't get enough ammo for it because SG-1 was using it for their show.
Yeah, it uses a 5.7 millimeter round or something. I think that's so not a standard
5.7 by 28 millimeter.
Yeah,
which is that's different than the standard like 5.56 or the AR-15/M16 uses. So it's an oddball ammo. So they buy up basically SG-1 bought up all the ammo. For these guns,
and you could see
where no one else could get them,
where they didn't have it early on because the P90 has a translucent magazine that sits on top. It's like it sits horizontally on top of the assembly there, and you can actually see like where it's translucent and there's no ammo in it, and then where later in the episode it's translucent and you can see the ammo in it. So it's kind of funny there as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they even flat out say we need P90s. I mean, it wasn't even well, just whatever's available. It's like, no. We're going to get this. We're going to make sure this name gets out there so that there's an advertisement for the manufacturer, Yeah,
Heckler and Koch or whoever it is. I don't know, but
PN, Fabrique Nationale de Belgium.
Our favorite Belgians. Yeah, that was it. But Ian McCullum on Forgotten Weapons is a pretty good YouTube channel if you want to learn about like old,
a lot of fun,
like old weapons and stuff. And he does a really good one on the P90. So
yeah, he's very, very interesting because he really gets into the history of it so much more of all the weapons that he covers. It's a lot of fun to watch. That's one I definitely recommend. He's fun. He's fun to watch. But then, of course, we've got the two teams, and we got to block the Stargate until now the other team members got hurt. Now they have to just go grab them and get them back to back to camp, back to SGC. So forget blocking protecting the Stargate.
Yeah,
and of course it's SG-1 is the only ones that are actually finishing the mission.
Yeah, SG-11 I think is pretty much wiped out after this, right? I mean, SG-11's wiped out. SG-2 he has or Captain Griff or whatever gets shot by the staff weapon that Rothman grabs. But so SG-2 comes through it okay, but SG-11 I think is pretty much wiped out after this.
They are because just blanked on his name. The one that became infected,
Hawkins,
both of them that became infected were so they both Gil Hawkins there, Major Hawkins and of course Dr. Rothman. They were both part of SG-11, and now they were the last ones standing. So. They nothing left. No one part of that team left. So, yeah, once again, another team lost.
Yeah, the only team you want to be on is SG-1.
Yeah, I can't look at a package of zip ties the same way after this either, because Teal'c throws a package of zip ties at Jack and says, "Okay, tie everyone up with zip ties," because he suspects that there may be one or more Goa'ulds in their number, but they don't know who it is, and so Jack zip ties them, and then I guess zip ties himself, or Teal'c zip ties him, and then Teal'c says, I'm going to find Daniel, but it's just a ruse. He's really just waiting off stage to see who breaks free first. And Jack is joking, says like, okay, anyone here who's a Goua'uld, raise your hand. And of course, at that exact moment, Major Hawkins goes and breaks free from the zip ties and raises his hand. And, Teal'c comes out and says, haha, I was just waiting off stage, and shoots him. And then at that exact moment, they say, hey, wait a minute, Rothman, you have like a big zip tie mark on your hand. Like you were trying to get free too. And Rothman goes, like, not a very smart move on the Goua'ld's part, but, we can probably excuse that because these are like prehistoric Goua'uld. Goes, haha, I'm also a Goua'uld. And then Jack gets to shoot him a whole bunch of times, which I think Jack wanted to do, but still, it's not really, like I said, fair for the character.
Not cool way to do it, though.
Yeah.
I will say that whole interchange with Teal'c and Jack was really great. You know, that whole, what did he say? I'm sure you wrote it down, Victor, where he says like, well, what if I'm not me? And then he says, well, then I wasn't talking to you.
Yeah. What if I'm not Jack O'Neill?
Yeah.
Then I'm not talking to you.
Right. That was a really good, where they're kind of confused, and Teal'c's like, no, I'm going to tie you all up.
Of course, Teal'c says, trust me, the old trust me, I know what I'm doing. Which is always the worrisome thing, unless it's Teal'c, apparently.
Yeah.
But then, afterwards, Jack, of course, Jack is like, oh, you were just sitting there waiting for him to show up. Indeed,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, but of course, that's a silly question.
Oh, and when Hawkins first breaks free, then Jack's screaming for Teal'c.
Yeah.
Teal'c,
I know you're here. Yeah, and Sam gets to be the voice of like logic. She gets to be Spock and says, it is logical that if one of us is a Goua'uld, this would make the most amount of sense. We should be tied up. And then, so I did like kind of how that played out. It's like, tie everyone up, send the two people at the gate to retrieve them, bring them back through the Stargate. Dr. Fraser can run her Goua'uld scan on them. Provided they make it that far. But of course, Teal'c's plan was just they'll reveal themselves way before then, and I'll just come out and shoot them.
Yeah, it worked.
And it is interesting though that these Goua'uld, because they were primeval or they're not as developed as the Goua'uld that inhabited the System Lords, they didn't act anywhere near the same as Goua'uld, the other Goua'uld we know do, because they did allow the host to maintain control, or seeming to maintain control, until they had to, until they felt they needed to show themselves taking control. And that was kind of interesting. So we didn't hear the Goua'uld voice or anything like that.
And we don't know how long Rothman was Goua'lded.
Yeah, when he ran back through the gate the first time to Earth, was he a Goua'uld at that point, or was it later when he came back on the planet and was near the lake?
It had to have been later, because I would think if any Goua'uld made it to the SGC like that, they would have revealed then, because,
Well, again, but they don't know, those Goua'uld don't know what SGC is. They don't know who the Stargate teams are, because they're not connected with the System Lords. They're not offshoots of them.
Yeah.
So that was, that's, you'd think that's probably how it was originally, that they weren't just parasites. They were probably more symbiotic at first with the Unas, but then as they learned more and developed, they became more parasitical than symbiotic.
And that also sets up kind of like the dichotomy between the Unas, who were, the very first Unas who were taken over by the Goua'uld, went through the Stargate, left, and became, ultimately the System Lords, and the Unas that were left behind on the planet, who said, I don't want that to happen to me, and basically shoot and like kill on sight any Goua'uld that they see jumping out of the water. So, I think that's really cool. And then the whole episode. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and that's why the cave was so important, because that's where they hid from the Goua'uld larva, was in the cave. They knew that the larva couldn't get into the cave. They couldn't reach that far. So they were safe there, and then could go out and hunt them or whatever.
Yeah. And that the whole episode kind of is about Chaka's, we'll call him Chaka, character progression, to the point where he does make a choice at the end. Am I going to turn Daniel over to my clan, or ask the main head guy that Daniel can join our clan, which I don't know what that would have meant, but it didn't sound good for Daniel either way.
Well,
and the main clan guy's like, no, he can't join our clan. He's not a Unas. And then, SG-1 runs in at that point, and Daniel's like, no, don't shoot. Let's see how this plays out. And it's only when Chaka's threatened by the main head Unas that SG-1 like unloads, and then Chaka, of course, becomes the new alpha. So I thought that was like very interesting progression on Chaka's point there.
Now, admittedly, some of this was assumption, though, on Daniel's part, because he said, well, he assumed that he was being taken for supper, that he was going to be eaten. And then he assumed that this was Chaka trying to, bring Daniel into the clan, instead of just merely protecting him, making sure that Daniel didn't end up in the stew pot.
Yeah, I think when he saw the cave paintings and Chaka very said this is you, because I'm gonna scratch your face and put your blood on the wall. This is you. Here's me. I'm carrying you, and you're dead. At that point, Daniel's like, oh, okay, I see how this goes. But at that point, Chaka's like, oh, maybe my worldview can be expanded here, and so we come back to that later. But
the scene at the end where Chaka's taking over Alpha Male and killing him, I actually thought that was pretty violent for Stargate. Mm-hmm. It felt out of tone with the show. It got a little dark. It got a little, it was a lot of, rather than just he kills him, it was a lot of bashing and I don't know, a little more graphic and violent than I feel like Stargate usually is.
Oh, I didn't notice it so much because it was just two guys in rubber suits,
Yeah.
I thought it was Godzilla and
with green blood,
King Ghidorah or something fighting. Yeah, I mean, but that's their way, right? So they are a very physical species and stuff. But what really struck me at the end is as he's walking and he does this pose at the end where it kind of looks like Sasquatch in that that famous faked footage of Sasquatch, and he looks back and he goes Shaka, and then he takes off, and Daniel's and they're what does that mean? He's like, I don't know what it means, but I think I've been invited to come back and find out. So yeah, I'm glad he didn't join the clan because
I think he probably was too, to be honest. But of course, we see Shaka later. He comes back a couple more times. Mm-hmm. So this isn't the last we see or hear of him.
I guess my take on some of this was, I think Daniel just made it all up. I'm not sure he was reading it all correctly. I think he just does what he wants to do. I'm just saying.
Yeah. No,
Daniel's like, sure, this is what's going on. And
in the confines of a 42-minute TV show, this isn't a full movie like Enemy Mine with Louis Gossett Jr. and Daniel Quaid where they have 2 hours, which is what this is based on, right? Where the two pilots crash and they can't communicate, and eventually they learn to communicate. I think within the confines of a 42, they set this up okay, we know what non means, we know what ka means, we know what K-ka means. We don't know what Chaka means, and that's okay because that's the central mystery of the show. So within the confines of a very, where they have to still have Teal'c and Jack shooting things, I think that, I can cut them some slack on that where they don't necessarily have enough time to spell it all out, but I like it definitely for what it is. But definitely don't join his clan. Oh, and I do like how so he's wearing this necklace of maybe teeth bones or some sort of bones, or Goua'uld. Goua'uld have those little mouths that go and they have these little fangs. Maybe it's Goua'uld fangs or something. And you think it's just ornamental, these are all the kills I have or something. And then it actually turns out, Daniel surmises, and again, this may be something that Daniel made up, that he wears it to prevent the Goua'uld from digging into his neck. So that's
could be.
Yeah. I actually liked that one. I thought, okay, now SG teams need to take a note and start wearing things around their necks.
Or body armor.
Yeah. Why do you think the serpent and the Horus guards wear those things that cover their necks, right?
Yeah.
Even though they're Jaffa at some point.
Jaffa, they don't have to worry about it. Yeah. Anything else?
I did look up the foreign titles. It's not exciting. I'm just, I'm going to put everyone out of their misery. Okay, the French called it primitives. The Italians called it the first ones.
Okay.
Spanish. What?
Il primo uno.
Yeah. The Spanish is the first ones. Czech is the first hosts.
Ooh.
Hungarian, the first ones. Russian, the first ones. The Germans, the Unas.
Oh.
Yeah.
Very. Yeah. What can you say?
One thing I did like, Daniel, where he's helping remove the bullet from Chaka's hand. And he says, I suppose it wouldn't help to mention Androcles and the lion.
Right.
And of course, that story, if you for those who aren't familiar, that's the one where the man removes the thorn from the lion's paw. The lion has a thorn stuck in his paw, and he removes it. Mm-hmm. So they're going to become friends, supposedly.
Yeah. And then later on in the Colosseum, the lion, Androcles, is going to be devoured by lions, and the lion pounces out, and it happens to be the same lion that Androcles removed the thorn from his paw from. And the lion goes, well, that's Androcles. He's my buddy.
He's my buddy. I can't eat him.
Nope. So presumably they kill Androcles a different way. I don't know how that story ends.
Yeah.
I don't know either.
There's another lion in the
Cliff Notes version of it. Anything else, Victor?
No, I actually like this episode. There's a lot going on. We see 3 SG teams in the field, which we hardly ever see. Mm-hmm. At this point in the show, the Unas have been kind of like this wild card. They're kind of like the Boba Fett of the show. Like, what do we know about them? We don't really know anything about them, and now we learn a lot more about them. But we don't learn too much, which is good too, because if we'd learned too much about the Unas at this point, it would have spoiled the mystery. But we're left with maybe more questions than we had coming into this episode, which is good too.
And did we see Peter DeLuise have a cameo?
I don't think he did, unless he was like in an Unas suit, or was the guy with the fishing rod pulling the Goua'uld puppet through the water when it was like,
Yeah.
And it was obvious like somebody's just reeling that in.
Yeah, he's not listed in having a cameo, and he might have been somebody like in the back, or that you don't see, but you just gonna see a glimpse of. But he's not listed as an actual actual actor, star, or whatever. So
his cameo was writing the episode, I guess, this time.
Yeah.
Yep.
I did read that the character Loader was named after his wife's name. Remember, she was on the other side.
Yeah.
Anne-Marie Loader, and that's I guess before they got married. So I did read that that's where that character got its name.
Well, awesome. So we do have, just going to grab some real quick feedback here from Discord before we finish up. To encourage you again to join us at sqpn.com/Discord to join the conversation. But yesterday, as we record this, the Zinger wrote, I just listened to the Ergo episode of the podcast, and at one point you guys were wondering if Tilk drinking coffee was a GIF. It is one of my most used GIFs. You can find it on Discord and Facebook by just searching Tilk Coffee.
Awesome.
There we go.
So there you go. If you want to find that great picture of him chugging down the hot pot of coffee from Ergo, just search Tilk Coffee.
And if there's any entrepreneurs in Brooklyn who want to know what to name their new coffee company, their new coffee roasting company, Tilk Coffee would be an excellent name.
Yeah. So we'd like to take a moment now to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Stargate, including Kristen R., Deacon Gregory W., Nancy K., John S., and Hans G. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Stargate and all the shows here at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. Be sure to follow the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, or other wonderful podcast apps. We're also at YouTube at youtube.com/StarQuestMedia. To find previous episodes of The Secrets of Stargate and to send feedback, please visit sqpn.com/Stargate. You can email us at our email address, which is stargate@sqpn.com, or follow StarQuest on social media at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia or on Twitter at SQPN. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing Scorched Earth, the next episode of SG-1. Until then, Lisa Jones, thank you for joining me and sharing the Secrets of Stargate.
Thanks, Father Cory.
And Victor Lambs, thanks to you as well.
None. Thanks, Father Cory.
At least he didn't say no.
You're right.
And once again, I'm Father Cory Sticha. Thank you to listening to the Secrets of Stargate on StarQuest.
Anyway, I'm sorry, but that just happens to be how I feel about it. What do you think?